What am I to do when the day is through?
Michael, today's guest, Fernando from Rebu, to listen to the two of you start to riff on naming and branding and companies and the challenges and how y'all overcome it. It was like two musicians jamming at a jazz club. It was so much fun.
Well, I loved him. Absolutely adored him. And again, I love it. Just maybe I don't know. I think Christine does a good job of finding guests for us, but it when you find people that are on the same page with you philosophically, and he definitely is, it's just special, you know. And I love hearing that. It makes me warms my heart that we're doing things the right way. And I do have to ask you a question. If we go any further, are we in distress right now? Is our company in trouble? Do I need to know
Why?
something about the agency? Because your circle R is upside down on your microphone, and it's been bothering me the entire day. I keep looking at it. I'm like, it's upside down. Like, what are you trying to say to me right now? Are you calling for help?
No, I think it's because when IT came to fix my computer, because my Mac decided to stop Zoom, all my stuff got reset. I found the little box like all the way across the room. It had gotten
Yeah.
thrown off the mic, so I got to put some things
All
back
right,
together.
it looks interesting, but yeah, and on top of that, so and if anyone, I don't know if anybody will notice, but because when they stop listening halfway through, they're going to realize that your sound gets better because your mic was off for the first half of the podcast, so it was just room noise. It sounded okay, but it wasn't like all of a sudden it got better because like I was like, why is there an echo? I mean, we pay for these nice mics and you're not using it. So
Well,
anyway,
I think my producer, Michael Russo, is supposed to do a sound check at the beginning of every podcast. Did you fall asleep? Did you miss that step?
no, because when I got on for the sound check, you couldn't hear. Remember?
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, because
Because
you
my
keep.
speakers were set to the wrong thing because
All
my
right,
computer was all effed up.
all right. I'm gonna edit all this. So let's just get back to introducing our
No, keep it.
guest.
I think it's the thing people enjoy, which is weird. Like, y'all can go home and watch your parents fight. You don't have to us disagree.
I did enjoy him a lot though, and like I said, he's doing really good work, obviously,
Yes.
and for really good clients, and being from Brazil is just cool, you know,
Yes.
and New York. So yeah, got a lot of cool factor. I feel like I'm just like him, both cool creative directors.
He
Me,
has a
me and
better accent.
Fernando and Michael.
Yes. Fernando and Michael, the dynamic duo. All right, y'all enjoy the show. Welcome, Fernando.
Wow, thank you, and very, very good to be here. Thank you for having me. This is great.
Well,
This is
we are
fun.
excited. We try to find voices and thought leaders and practitioners of our craft who really are doing some great things. And I think you and your agency fit that bill perfectly. So excited when you came across my desk. I thought maybe we could kind of start at the beginning. What motivated you to establish Revu, and how does its mission really reflect in your projects?
Wow, great
I know
question.
we're gonna
And
dive
Go
right
ahead.
in, man.
Yeah.
I
There's no
actually,
soft.
and I thank you so much once again. Thank you for having me over. This is great, and I'm very glad to be here. So yeah, I worked for 5 years in for Interbrand, São Paulo,
Mhm.
and that was kind of my branding university. I learned everything from brand strategy, naming, verbal identity, tone of voice, and I didn't even know what a benchmark was. And I would hear that word and I was like, oh, what is a benchmark? And I remember like a bench and with a mark. I thought of random things with those words. And I realized, branding is quite an interesting subject. I was like, I love it. I love branding. And I love branding not from a capitalistic perspective. I love the idea that branding is about bringing people together around the same idea. That's much more powerful than just selling more, sodas, for me, from my perspective. So I think that was my first interest. I mean, I'm the second son of two parents who are psychoanalysts and psychologists. And I remember as a teenager, I would think I wasn't going to go towards the same direction because I wanted to be a creative and a cool creative and blah blah blah. And as I see myself now, I'm 40. I see that we branding is therapy for businesses, so it's pretty close. So yeah, and the idea why I created Rebel, with my good friend, my best friend, Pedro Matos. We both worked for Interbrand for many years, and we started to realize that big corporate brands, they lose their soul, they lose their poetry, they lose the magic, they lose what makes a brand, which is this poetry, which magic. And we're like, there's no way that this is it. So it comes from a place of conformism. Like, uh, we need to create, there must be another way to create brands. And we started Rebu with that idea. Sometimes it works, some other times it doesn't. But we still, it's been 10 years on the road. And now I live in New York, and Pedro lives in Sao Paulo, and we have this duality between Brazil and the United States, which is quite interesting.
Right. How does
Mhm.
that duality affect you? And we can dive into politics if you want to, but I would imagine it's a third rail that we want to avoid. But how does it personally provide kind of inspiration? I know, we're in Louisiana. When I travel to New York, I feel like I'm going to the city and I get inspired and excited, and there's an energy and a pace. And so when you travel back and forth between the two, how does that fuel you?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I kind of feel the same way when, like, what's funny? São Paulo is a huge city. It's enormous. And I must say it's a very underrated city, because you don't hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, I went to São Paulo to find references," but it really is a city where you can find multiple cultures, and the vibrancy and the connections between different ideas. And I still love São Paulo, but of course New York just brings that to a different level. So. Um, New York is kind of like just a good way to understand people beyond brands, because people say, oh, I go to New York to see brands. Come on, you can see brands online on a desk research, but in New York you kind of understand what's happening to people, good or bad. You kind of understand humanity in a more profound way. So you're like, oh, so this is what's going to happen to Sao Paulo in a couple of years, or and nowadays in a couple of days, because things are moving so fast. So, but it's interesting to be here because you kind of see things first, and things that come from all over the world. So I just it's very cliche, but I do love New York, and this is the way to I feel being 3 years here. Do you feel the same way, Michael? Just curious.
About New York.
Yeah,
A little bit. I mean, it's a lot. It's
too
we were
much.
there. We were there last month actually, and we had a really nice trip. It's and we both worked in different markets. I was in Seattle after college. Jackie was in Los Angeles, and we both chose Louisiana for a reason, because it was kind of our home, and it was just a great place to get away from that a little bit. But there are times we definitely miss it as well. The opportunities, and like I love what you said about just the therapy for business. I think I've never heard it said that way, but I absolutely love it. We talk about branding and brands as emotional connections, and I think that's kind of the same language. It's about how you feel about something. And when you're in New York, like you said, I think you experience brands firsthand. Like you live in them. Like you can't help it when you walk in. They have these corporate headquarters and flagship locations, and like you're just surrounded by that energy, and it's hard to get away from. Like you immediately get it or you don't get it, and I love that part of it.
And sometimes this is a great way to put it. You get it or you don't get it, and sometimes it's both. It's almost watching a Russian film. Those very intellectualized films. You're like, I like it, but I don't know if I got it. I like. It's kind of like how I feel in New York. I love it, even though I don't think I cracked it. Or is that a good way to say it? I don't think I kind of understood the full picture of it, and I never will. And that's why it's so fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Mhm.
I think it's hard too. We've been doing this for a little while, going on almost 25 years, and we've grown, we've evolved, we've changed our processes, and gotten pretty good at what we do, I think. but you still have that struggle of getting, finding the right people, that because there is a match. You have to find people that really believe in it, that are going to trust you and really follow you to the lead. And some of our longer retainer clients have bought into that, and that's why we've had longer experiences with them. But some people just fight it. They're too easy to jump on a trend or something quick and needy versus the longer play. And it is a long play, really. If you're going to dive deep into it, you have to establish something and then build those relationships and build that tribe around your culture.
That's a good point. I never thought of it that way, but that makes branders kind of gives us the benefit of longevity. While, if you work in social media, for example, the older you get, the less connected to the next trend you will be, and that's inevitable. But in branding, it feels like you're always taking long strides and you think about the long run. So even though now, people are dancing in front of, doing TikTok dances, uh, the brands still need some essence that holds it all together. It can be in different manifestations, but this is a good way to see it. Branding is about the long run, and that's one other reason why I love it.
Yeah, it seems like reading your resume here, you play in a different pond than we play in. There's some bigger size clients and more well known and renowned, but I found that from working locally, working regionally, to working nationally and even internationally, it's all kind of the same. You have the same problems, the same issues, the same drama, internal this and that, and buy-in, and it just gets bigger, but it's the same thing. It doesn't matter what level you're on, it still applies. We kind of try to say we're industry agnostic. It doesn't matter what industry we're working with. Our process, we think, works in that. But you got to buy in, you got to trust it, you got to follow it. But it doesn't matter what you're selling or who you're selling or what you're selling to. And especially in the B2B space, Jackie talks about that a lot. It's we try to bring a B2C mentality to a B2B world, to where, we're still dealing with people. We're still talking to someone. We're still, just because it's business to business doesn't mean it doesn't have a soul, and I like what you were saying earlier. It just made so much sense and resonated. So I liked it a lot.
That's great, Michael. Believe me, I love the independent clients and the smaller ones, because you really get closer connection to them, and I also loved the business that you said, segment agnostics, and I feel the same exact way. I agree. The heart of branding is still the same. It can be in the fashion business, B2B, B2C. You still have to discuss and understand a business, speak to people, and kind of connect the dots to bring the truth in its most beautiful form to whatever client that company has. So I remember when I started at Interbrand, we were doing it's a big brand in Brazil. They do uh, refrigerator compressors, and it's called Embraco. And at first, of course, I was, a junior, I was just starting in branding, and now I understand why that project, was given to me, because I was, well, you take this one because it's B2B. It's not as fun. It's not as sexy and exciting. Uh, but I loved it. I was like, wow, wait a second. I was talking to the scientist, and the scientist told me that he worked on P&D, and he was like, that without a compressor, a fridge is just a closet. And I was like, wow, that's powerful. That's beautiful. So it's almost like the heart of the fridge, right? And it was like, it's the heart of the fridge. And I was like, wow, this is beautiful. So we started to reinterpret the code, and how the code can be, what provides food, and for a modern world, and how that can be quite poetic. And I still love the work we did for Embraco, I'd say like 15 years ago, 16 years ago. It's still connected to because it goes back to the foundations of being humans, and I
Let
believe
me
in it.
just say that only in Brazil can a refrigerator company sound like a fancy restaurant. I mean, Embraco. I'm going to Embraco tonight. I mean, it just that just sounds elegant, you know.
And the name is Empresa Brasileira de Compressores. So it's
I mean,
really an
come on,
acronym. It's
come on.
you can be more you can't be more B2B than that. So,
No.
I'd like to
okay.
point out to our listeners that I have not left the podcast. Although I have not spoken for 12 minutes and counting, it's not because I went to get water or used the restroom or took a phone call. Nope, just been sitting here listening to the fellas. The interesting thing about that is during our pre-show, I said, oh, Michael's going to be the one who's going to take them on this. You guys are both creative directors. Y'all are going to talk. And they both corrected me, listeners. They both said, oh, no. You'll be talking the whole time. 12 minutes and counting.
She
Carry
normally
on, boys.
does. She normally does, Fernando. So I'm usually the quiet one.
Carry on.
But I will want to say, but just on that note before we move on, like I think there is a need for specialists in the world, right? But and what we do always try to fight that, because a lot of times we won't get a gig because they'll say, we want somebody that really knows more about banking or this or that. And I'm like, well, we do. We're not all in on it. I think when you work inside a bubble, it's like preaching to the choir, and you're not living in a world outside of that. And you have to be able to bring real life experiences, because again, you may be talking about one particular industry or product, but other people live in a real world. So they're going to be inspired by different things. And how do you connect with them on that level? And I think we still preach that. We have certain audiences where I'm like, look, you want to run these ads or this cycle or talk to these people over and over and over again. I'm like, they get it. They probably heard of you by now, but why don't we tap into other avenues and new channels, new pathways, and get new eyes on this,
Exactly. Yeah. This is perfect. And I think
Jackie.
the fact that, Jackie, go ahead. Sorry.
No, he's making fun of me because I'm pretending to file my nails. Y'all carry on.
But yeah, one of the reasons I think it's good to come from Brazil is that our industry is not as big and divided as like a huge the American market, and that way that gives us room to be more of a generalist, because you can't just be specific to a single industry. I just want to do restaurant branding. I mean, you can, but it's a lot harder when the market is not as gigantic as the American market. So in a way, I think that was good for me. I don't know if you feel the same way, Jackie, being in Louisiana, that you have to kind of get different clients, or you agree or not? I don't know.
No, I totally agree.
By the way, Fernando just threw you a bone. He's like, hey, I want to bring Jackie back in.
That was kind of him.
Thank you, Fernando.
My husband chose not to do that, but I appreciate that our guest did. So, for us, Fernando, because we're in a smaller market, we, in the early years, were very limited by that. People wanted a big agency in a big market, but we've always been hybrid. It's flex. People could work at the office or work from home. So we've had people who live in other cities who work with us because they don't have to live here. Technology, Well, then as really COVID came along and people got comfortable with Zoom and not feeling like somebody has to be a block away, we were able to really finally blossom into this agency that has a ton of big market clients, and they've appreciated that we don't charge big market rates. So they get really good talent at small market prices, Madison Avenue quality at small town value. It's a win-win for everybody.
That's great. That's good that you said that, because I kind of feel it's the same way with us. I mean, we do have some good clients, like big clients. I'm also very happy that bigger clients are more open to independent agencies now than they used to be. I don't know if you feel the same way, but they kind of find it cool to be, talking to Rebu. When I was I lived in Massachusetts as a teenager, and I went to college there, and it wasn't like that. People wanted to work for Nike, and Nike would work with JKR and would work with Interbrand and Future Brand. And I think this whole, I don't know if it was COVID or the what happened, that just there is more opportunity for independent agencies, and companies are finding it cool to find the agencies that are more craft and independent on their way to tackle creative businesses. I think that's great for for both of our businesses. That's just great.
Absolutely. One of the things that I noticed, Fernando, when I was doing some research on you, is you're kind of a verbal identity specialist. So, walk me through your process. How do you approach crafting a brand's voice, and why do you think that's so crucial in today's market?
Oh, that's great. I think I remember one day people said namers would no longer exist because all the names would be taken, and and there is a limit to it. I mean, when you create names, there's a limitation of the words out there and how many combinations you can make. But even today, many years from that suspicion, we still see good names being created, every day. And I think naming is almost like compiling a brand purpose into one word, or a small combination of words, and that's a very challenging process, because then you also have to go through legal, you have to go through the entire process of understanding how people will pronounce it, and if that's going to evoke the brand personality that you're willing to promote or to express. Um, i i just found out that I loved words from my childhood. I started to write. I used to work for filings as a teenager, and I would just was no customers. I would just get some paper and start writing, and I was like, I love words, and I would stop and hear a joke and or a different word from a different language and just feel like, oh, that's such a beautiful word. Like Keza, for example, is summer. Wow, that's beautiful. And I would stop and just analyze the word, and even the graphics of letters. Like you see that an R is almost like a person that's walking forward. There is some movement to the R letter, like river. It flows, it rolls. So I love words, and that was I think that's a premise to work with verbal identity, and that was my way into Interbrand. And of course, after that, I started to do that, to bring words into the strategic part of it, because brand strategy is also about words. You still have to analyze, competition, and come up with a big idea, which is basically a good phrase. Airbnb, belong anywhere. That's like, I wish I created that, because that's super
Yeah.
powerful. I mean, that's beautiful. I mean, belong in. That's such an overpromise, but at the same time, it's so beautiful.
No, I love
But
that. I love that
but
too. I'm a big wordsmithing fan, and I call it the type of writing that I do. And I'm not a trained writer. I graduated college as a designer, but I had a knack for words and putting things together, and I became a pretty decent ad writer over time. And what I call it is lyrical writing, and because it has a flow. If it has like just the right tagline, the right everything, the right name, it just has a rhythm to it. And when you have that rhythm, that's when it works. But you're right. It is hard these days naming. I mean, and we've done a lot. And recently, this past year, we've had a bunch. And man, you go down, it's opened up, but it's so small. Now, there's no doubt that, there's 15 names of this caliber across the country. And so then when you get to trademarking and things like that, it's a nightmare. And that's why you have all these drug companies, Suletafork
oh yeah.
or Quasmetamorph, whatever, just shoving words together to make something unique. And it's just, it's a battle. But when you do have that win, it's so satisfying. It's like, oh, that's really good. I love that. Or that system works together, or we named a process, or whatever it may be. It's just challenging now.
Yeah, and there are always tricks to, you can either, like when you see Tony's Chocolonely, obviously the Chocolonely was added to the brand so it's more ownable. Because Tony's, there is a pizza place in every corner with that name. It's not that easy to get Tony's registered, so you need Tony's Chocolonely. And we recently did a naming process for a Brazilian star, football star called Neymar. He's pretty big. He's like a global football, in which we also created a last name. So the name, his brand is Play, spelled with an EY, and we added the surname by Nay, which is his nickname. So it's Play by Nay. It's like Beats by Dr. Dre, because
Mhm.
you're not gonna get Beats, registered, because that's just hard. So you can add a last name to the word. So naming will always exist because words are there's a limit to words, but the creativity around it is limitless. I don't know if I answered your question, Jackie, on how I tackle verbal identity, but it's with a lot of it's just never losing the poetry, never losing the poetry. That's the um I mean, and sometimes phrases, you can't change phrases. Clients often ask us to do that. Like, is there another way to write just do it without the do? Like, no, then you're gonna lose the phrase. And that's one of we stick to our ideas. We are very, being an independent agency kind of allows us to be more um, pushy on the ideas we truly believe in because we don't rely on our structure. We don't have a huge structure. So we can be a little bit crazier, saying, hey, this is what we believe in. This is the name. This is the logo. This is the identity. And if you don't like it, you can, find it, find something, that suits your wants somewhere else. I mean, we don't need you as a client, which is not a reality for like big conglomerates.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, it's finding the, having people buy in is important because you're often trying to sell them something that's uncomfortable. Like we just did there's the client now, but there's a winery in Washington State called Maryhill. And they have 4 tasting rooms. They distribute all over the Northwest. They have some, and they're really good winemakers and they have really good wine. But part of their flagship, their claim to fame, is that they really respect the vineyards in Washington State. The grapes come from there, comes from the soil. They're like a flagship winemaker there, and there's a lot of reasons why. Because mainly the weather. It's cooler at night and it's warm during the day, and they're all across this gorge in the Northwestern Valley, and it's just a beautiful area. We just went up there recently, but so
I want to go now that you said
it's
it.
amazing, and they have these great varietal wines, and just really cool. And we got to go see the winemaking process, and they don't actually grow grapes; they harvest the grapes from all these other vineyards around the area. But they have a really master winemaker there that does a really great job. But the whole idea, the kind of tagline or the line that I came up for them was where it's made matters, because the whole idea is that is the thing. It's like it matters, like where it's made, like because they want to be those people that honor the traditions, honor the people that are growing the grapes, honor all that. Now, if you heard that out of the blue, it wouldn't make any sense. When it's tied into the campaign, though, and they embraced it, I'm like, and they trusted us, they bought into it, and it's going really well. And I'm so proud of that because they didn't have to. It could have been because we have wine, or something very expected.
Yeah, exactly. Or the where, defined, which loses all the poetry. I mean, the beauty of the phrase is that I love when a phrase is not specific. It's generalistic, but at the same time, it makes perfect sense for that specific. So where it's made matters. It's poetic. It has a flow, as you said. I love it. I love that phrase.
Yeah.
That's
well, and thank you. But it was like, again, that was one of those instances where it's not tied in directly. And again, independently, it may not make sense, but when you hear the full story behind it, because we wrote this brand story, and it's real poetic, and it talks about the earth and the getting out in the fields and really, owning that part of it, and the pride, the Washingtonian pride in this product that's in their backyard. And that they, everybody there should own this valuable asset, which is something that not everybody has, And while a lot of people are like, oh, Washington wine, well, it's not Napa Valley, it's not California, it's not Europe, it's not South America, everybody has these ideas. But when you get to know that wine, you realize that there's a reason why, because the environment has changed. And because now up there, they are like the new Napa Valley in a way, because of the soil, because of the way, again, the cold nights and warm mornings, and the way the sunlight hits in the valley, all these different things. There's reasons why these grapes are coming up really, really good, and they're winning all these awards. And so it's kind of like a best kept secret. But even the people in the state don't really know it as much, So it's like, hey, let's go raise the flag and do it. And I just, when you're able to connect the dots like that and make people kind of believe in it, then I think you're on the right track.
That's great. So the fact that you said that it gives, self-esteem to a place that's not, I mean, honestly, if the same phrase was used for somewhere for a winery in California, you wouldn't have as much power and as much poetry to it. So it's interesting how good branding, it's almost like it needs to fit perfectly and to a specific moment, and perhaps the same phrase 10 years from now is no longer needed.
Right.
So it needs to be rebranded, which is why we always have business, which is great, right, Chuck?
One of my favorite
Mhm.
taglines of all times, I talk about this a lot, but it's Avis from like I think the 80s, and it was "We try
Love that.
harder." I was
We try
like,
harder. I love
fucking
that.
brilliant. I mean, it really was. They were the underdog. They weren't as big as the big guys. It was like, look, we can't compete with you, but you know what? We're gonna try harder, and that won people over. It won me over. I mean, it still does. I'm like, yeah, I want to go with that
Nice.
guy. I want to root for the underdog. I want to be the guy that's gonna work harder for me and not take me for advantage. I mean, it meant so much. There
Mhm.
was so much wrapped into that tagline. You know, I just when those things pop up, like you said, I wish I would have thought of that. That was brilliant.
Well, I think one of the
Yeah,
things that
that.
makes that
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
important is they're making a promise about effort, not outcome. They can't guarantee the outcome because there's so many things they don't control. But when they can control the effort, they're saying, hey, we're going to try harder. We'll see what happens. That is a brand promise they can live behind.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful way to put it. There's no, I promise I will try harder. I that oftentimes will give you better results. But
Correct.
and oftentimes brands really focus on the outcome, which is off. It's it could be a mistake, and being very functional and very about, you lose all the process, you lose the beauty of it. So you lose the soul when you do that, when you just want to say, this water is better than that one, and people don't really care about that. It's it's really interesting. It's a beautiful process. So yeah, I think verbal identity is part of what I do. Of course, like many years working in the business, you start to do creative direction in terms of design, in terms of strategy and positioning, and being a creative in full mode. But words will always be present in everything we do, even defining the creative pathway that you want to take a brand towards.
How do you find it's more of a personal question, I guess, from me to you, asking like, how do you find this far into your career and the growth of your agency being able to step back and not have your hands on everything when you start to really trust other creatives on your team and you say, you know what, that's good enough. Not good enough, but I like it, or it may not be mine, but it's still right. And being able to accept that and kind of understand that process.
Wow, that's always a challenge. I think today we have creatives that I truly trust, and people that are brilliant. And sometimes they come up with ideas that I wouldn't have thought, and that's just something that's quite. Or I will give a starting idea, and they will just work on it and come up with something that you know came from the same place, but it arrived at a better outcome than I was expecting. So I think culture is very important. Being able to, having your own employer branding very well defined. So Rebu, for example, is about revolution, elegance, Brazil, and utopia. That's like an acronym for everything that we do, and people inside of our corporation or business or agency truly believe in that. They're like, where is the revolution in this work? Like evolution, and it's not something that belongs to our studios. So I've seen it somewhere else, so it doesn't make any sense for Reboot to deliver this. So we oftentimes we are inspired by artistic work and not design work, which is like common. Usually like people go to uh Pinterest or different places for references that are more like graphic design references. The works we love the most were inspired by artistic work, which is something that's why we have Fridays off, and people can go to museums. They can take their own time to, be inspired by things that are different from desk researches, and that's one of the ways we come up with, our team comes up with ideas that are better than the ideas Fernando would have come by himself, or Fernando and
Mm-hmm.
Pedro. So that's one way, but it's always a challenge when people come in from different places and different backgrounds, and with their to get accustomed to the way we do it. Do you find culture is is the hardest thing for a small agency, because and people come and go, and that can be frustrating. People that you really love. Right now, a coordinator that we really like is leaving our team for a great opportunity that he found, and he has I say he has the eye for things that are um, beautiful and unique. And unfortunately, after 4 years, he's going somewhere else. So now we need to find another coordinator with a similar or with this this uniqueness, and it's going to be a challenge. It's very hard to find the perfect team, and I think we'll never get there. But having a very structured culture is important and a good guide.
Well, the challenge is as
Exactly.
soon as you get the perfect team, somebody gets an opportunity. So you're happy for
Uh,
them that they get a chance to go, but you're sad for you because they were a valuable resource.
Exactly. And in Brazil and even here, like, fintechs now that have their own design teams, and you can't and they have much more money than independent studios. So they will offer double the amount you can pay. So that's one of the challenges we've been finding. Like, clients are hiring more designers than ever, which is good, because now they are able to roll out the brand books and the brands the way we imagined it, but at the same time, we are competing with a much broader um, range of employers. So, but it's good. I think it's positive in a way.
That's good. All right, I'm going to touch the third rail. I'm going to talk about the topic Michael hates the most. Fernando, where do you think we're heading with AI?
Wow, AI. We use AI. I use AI.
We do too.
You do too. Okay, yeah. I think. Um, why do you hate it, Michael? At first, I want to know why Michael hates it.
Well, for a lot of the reasons that you're talking about, and yeah, we use it, of course, because it's not something that's going away. It's something that is a useful tool. It cuts a lot of work in half as far as just grunt work, and for me at least, decoding a transcript or summarizing text, things like that, right? And it helps with a blank page of just starting something. But what my fear is not today, but it's where it's going. And really, lately, more and more I hear about it, especially with like the Evo 3, the Flow system with video
Mhm.
development and things like that. That it's kind of terrifying how good it's getting. And I think not that it will replace or do all that. I think we're going to get lazy, and we're going to stop being creative, and we're going to stop being thought leaders, and we're going to stop doing things for ourselves. Just like, we're going to stop writing, and we're going to stop designing and having that humanity side of it. And that's my fear of AI, where it's going. And because, again, in our industry, I think people keep talking about it, putting us out of business first, marketers and lawyers and whatever. I think we're a little ways from that, but that's the video stuff that I'm seeing, and I haven't been able to, and I've tried, I haven't been able to reproduce some of the things that they're showing as well. So I think you have to really have an advanced level of understanding and a lot of money to do the things that they're doing.
Mhm.
But it's impressive. Like I don't know if you've seen this or not, with the AI, and they come on and saying, and it's like a real life commercial, and they're running through the flames or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, it'd be crazy if this was actually real, but it's not. I'm just a prompt," and like you're like, "Oh shit, this looks
This is
real,"
scary.
Yeah. So it's amazing and terrifying.
Right now, I agree with you, Michael. I think I wish AI could be more democratic and go and allow more people to create beautiful things. But we noticed how other tech, uh, you know, embarked in the same path of monopoly, in which, like, okay, now Amazon kind of owns the whole thing, and we thought we would be able to have different environments, and I think AI is going down the same path. Eventually, people will, everything costs a lot of money. I mean, it's not going to be very cheap to provide, to come up with AI that's actually, you know useful in the 0 to 1 minute. But in terms of AI, I've seen the both revolutions: the internet coming along, and now AI. I think the difference between the internet versus AI is that the internet is a Canva in which you ask people. It's an invitation. You ask people to deliver things, and then this becomes a social network in which we can all see whatever people are delivering. While AI is a sponge, people are just taking away from other creations and coming up with things that are just a mix up of what's going to happen when people no longer want to give, they just want to take. And that's already happening. I mean, you start to see things that are just mediocre, similar to whatever is happening. So I think the internet and AI are a contradiction. They are very different on their basics or on their essence. That one is a space for you to put whatever you want, and the other one is an opportunity to just take away from, and learn from. But oftentimes you're too lazy to give new creations so it can provide support for other people, and that's the problem that I
That's
see
you just
with
said it.
AI.
You just said it. That is exactly it. There is a little bit of anger in me, or jealousy, or whatever, or spitefulness about being somebody who develops this, puts things out in the world, and I see somebody just taking it. It's like, oh, I did this. No, you didn't. You borrowed from everybody else. So what happened to intellectual property? What happened to,
Mhm.
you're pulling from my thoughts that I put online and on the web, all the years that we've shared information out there. Now it's compiling it and giving it to somebody for free, and you're right. The free part is, I feel like we're all have spoonfuls of crack, and one day they're gonna say, all right, it's not free anymore. And
Exactly.
it's like, so they're getting everybody addicted to this thing, to where, again, they stop writing, they stop thinking, they're letting ChatGPT do all their work for them, and then all of a sudden they're going to pull the rug out and say, you got to pay for this now. This ain't free.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then it's going to be like, wait, I forgot how to write. I forgot how to do this on my own. I need this. So now it's like we're
Mhm.
dependent on the man to get our work done. And so that's not a great proposition. And I hate to
That's
get
kind of
all deep
scary.
into it,
Yeah, no,
but
no, no.
yeah.
This is great, and that's why we like the fact that we're independent. We like the fact that we do a lot of craft work, even for like big. We do like work for Rosewood, for example. That's like they invite us to create art. It's about craft. It's about uniqueness. So I think that in that, at least for a couple of years or months, I don't know, we're protected. But it's a very scary moment for creatives and thinkers. But going back to the naming, that all the names are taken, you still need a consultant to tell you which name to buy. And I think even when AI is there for everyone to use, there's still going to be a creative thinking about the prompt or the creative direction or the way you're going to connect this to that to create something like a third piece that's unique and artistic. So I'm still seeing the glass half full in a way. but
I'm
but
super
I don't know
positive
about.
about it. I think that
Mhm,
the people who are really good at their jobs now and are able to use AI as a tool to improve their efficiency, productivity, creativity, they're going to be great.
mhm,
I was on a podcast earlier today. I was interviewed as a guest, and an AI consultant was the other guest. And he said 95% of ad agencies, specifically marketing companies, will cease to exist in 3 years. I don't think he's wrong. But I also think it
mhm,
solves a problem that we've had in our industry. There are, 84, 89,000 ad agencies in the country, and a good number of them are not good at what they do. And
mhm,
because we didn't take our industry seriously enough to put in required education like architects have, or required licensing like lawyers have, or required post grad studies like doctors have, you buy a Mac and you call yourself an agency and you get to be in charge of millions of dollars of other people's money. And so
that's
maybe it's not a bad idea. I made the joke earlier, but I was serious that I think a lot about the lamp-lighters. These are men predominantly who used to go block by block in the late 1800s, lighting the street lights so that, that's how we had light at night because there's no
mhm,
electricity. And so the lamp-lighters didn't die when electricity was created and all those street poles became electrical. They became electricians. So where they used to manually light each thing, they became the people who learned how to wire stuff together to make electricity, make the lights work. So I think the people who are smart, they're going to get smarter with AI, and their agencies will survive, and the rest might not.
That's a great metaphor, the lamplighters, and I'm gonna use it
You
if you
may.
allow
You have
me, Jackie.
permission.
and
You
I
may
and
also think about the lamplighters every day like I do.
every day. That's a great way to put it. Recently, we created a brand, and on the brand book, we put a prompt because there were some 3Ds images that were created for the brand, and we're like, listen, instead of giving it to someone who's not the most senior designer that you'll find, you just put this prompt on AI and you will generate different images and objects with the same similar visual effects that we created for you, and that's on brand, and that's going to be on the brand book. So that was one of the ways we used branding and AI connected, to rethink the way brand books are done, because brand books are old. Opening a PDF to see how to use a logo. I mean, in the near future, that's no longer going to be needed. You're just going to be AI a brand book, which is a beautiful way to see it. So, yes, I agree with you, Jackie, and I also agree with you, Michael, that it could be dangerous for many agencies and creatives out there using agreeing with Jackie. So
Fernando's
yeah,
sitting in
this
the
is
middle of the
great.
road, man.
He's doing a
You should be
nice job.
I know, you should be a marriage counselor. You'd be perfect.
you
Like a
know,
I'm trying to
mediator.
make
I
all of
learned.
our podcast guests be our marriage counselor, Michael. That's not why they're here.
But you know what? I'm a son of one, so I think I learned something.
Okay.
so
There you
All
go.
so
right.
yeah,
There you go.
there are always good
Fernando,
points of view.
this has been awesome. You have been a great guest. Your insights, your wisdom, your accent have all been delightful. So thank you for bringing them all to us today.
I'm very excited to, speak to you. This was great, and this was fun, which is the most important thing for every podcast, is to be like a very welcoming space for everyone. So I'm really glad to talk to both of you, and thank you for listening to me, to my ideas.
No, awesome.
Very
And no,
good
I
ideas.
agree. You kind of, again, from the therapy and business, I've learned a lot from this. And I love that we're
Mhm.
on similar paths of beliefs, which always is encouraging, to hear other people that think the way you think about things. But like I said,
Mhm.
you're a whole nother level of that, which I really enjoyed. So thank you for your time.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you so much. Very glad to be here once again.
Thank you.
Cut. We're done.
Yay, you were great.
Thank you. Thank you. You say that to everyone, Jackie. I
I
know.
don't.
No,
I
no,
don't.
no, no. You were
Sometimes
awesome.
I'm like, thanks so much. Bye.
No, sometimes it's very painful. Usually those are the ones I don't talk. I check out completely. I'm like,
Michael
oh
checks
God.
out and they only last 35 minutes. You can go look at our podcast list. If they are short,
I,
don't
I,
listen.
I took a look before and I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. I was listening to many, I was like, oh, I can't wait to meet Jackie, because I think, Michael, you have all the knowledge from a creative director, but at the same time, it's good to be giving us this spark of, energy. Energy is important. So I think you're a good couple. You guys are a
Thanks.
good combination.
Thank you. I describe
This
us
is
as
great.
all gas and all brake. And so together we make the car go.
Yes, you need
Thank you.
both.
That's
You need
great.
both. We
And
would have burned out
yeah, you need
otherwise.
both.
Yeah.
I'm glad hopefully one day in New York we'll meet, and you'll meet my wife, and it's also a good combination. I think
Absolutely.
we're
Fernando, we would
a
love that.
good.
And if you find yourself coming to Lafayette, Louisiana, because we
I
do
really want
have
to go.
a massive French music festival that is free every April. It's called Festival International, and there are bands from every French-speaking territory in the world. They come from Africa, they come from France, they come from Canada, and it
Brazil.
is
Haiti.
Brazil. It is
Mhm.
a global music festival. It's free. Like 500,000 people come and invade our downtown, and our office is in the very center of it.
Oh my God, I really want to
Write
go.
it down.
So
It's the
it's
last
I
weekend
will.
in April every year. Save our contact information. Come, you can hang out at our office. We'll take you around. The food is awesome. The music is great. It's an adventure.
It's so interesting to be. I really want to travel more across the United States, because every time I have time and money, I have to visit family in Brazil.
Right.
And that's kind of annoying because then, like, okay, I want to see more of the United States. It's a beautiful country, beautiful culture. Uh, international relations. I have my my restrictions, but in terms of the people of the United States, is a good mix of many things I love. It's very diverse, very welcoming, and I think it's a great country to be living in. It's beautiful
Well,
and just
glad to
great.
have you.
And you
Come
talked
on
about
down
Washington.
anytime. Come on.
You talked about Washington. I really want to go there. It's far, but
It's so
Yeah.
awesome.
this is probably one of the most beautiful places in Earth. I'm pretty sure.
Mhm.
I want to take the kids there. I have 2 kids. I want to take them there.
Good. Good. Well,
Okay,
Fernando, it was great
Michael,
to meet
I
you.
will be there. Okay, I'll meet you
Excellent.
guys in
Let us
Louisiana
know
for
when you're
sure.
coming.
For sure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jackie. Thank you,
All right.
Michael.
All
Very
right.
good to talk
Thank
to
you,
you.
man. We appreciate
Bye.
it.
Bye.
Very nice. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you.
When the day is through.